welcome to the show.
Hi, Nathan. I'm happy to be here today. Thank you.
It's always a pleasure chatting with you, Arti. For our viewers who may not be as familiar with you, could you please take a minute and introduce yourself and tell everyone about your background and what you're doing at the moment?
Absolutely. So my name is Arti Munshi, and I work as an analyst. I have been doing this now for, I want to say, a little over 7 years. I've been in the higher ed space over the last 7 years. I was previously working at Western Governors University, which is a fully online university, and I'm currently working at National University. My experience lies primarily in market research in the higher ed space, as well as data analysis. I believe they go hand in hand. You cannot really do market research without doing some level of quantitative and or qualitative analyses. And at the same time, I believe that there's only so much you can do with first party data. So I spend a lot of time honing in on practices that allow us to marry both first party data analysis as well as macroeconomic indicators and market research data analysis.
That's great, Arti. That sounds like it makes for exciting reports on your end. Um, what does your leadership rely on you, Arti, when they come to you and they say, "Hey, great job"? What do they mean when they say that?
Yeah, that's a great question because as I just said that I do a lot of first party data analysis as well as market research. So one of the things that my leadership relies on me for are insights. And when you say insights, it's so vague, right? Because they just say they want insights. Now, what does that mean? So they rely on me to try and help them understand what's happening out there in the market that could be impacting our data that we're seeing in-house. Um, I also do a lot of, so just a little to rewind a little, I do a lot of forecasting of our KPIs, and that is what leadership uses to track performance. So when I do forecast those KPIs, I do not limit my analyses or my models to just the first party data. I look at the macroeconomic indicators, I look at what's happening with competition, I help build frameworks and external benchmarks, and then I implement those as well when it comes to forecasting these KPIs. So when our performance is in line with what I've forecasted, it's good job, great job, everyone. But when you don't meet those KPIs, rather when you fall short, that is when the red flags are raised. And so I help them understand that what may have changed from the time that the forecasts were made, the models were implemented, to what is currently happening in the market out there and how the consumer behavior is changing. Um, because I work in marketing, we do focus a lot on consumer behavior because that is the first step that you'd want to look at whenever there's a decision-making process. We do not focus on what enrollments are looking. Of course, we look at what enrollments are looking like in the market, but we are definitely more interested in how individuals' minds are currently working. So trying to provide them a window into what's happening in a potential student's mind is what I focus on, and I try to help them with that. That being said, my CMO, she highly values the consumer mindset and believes in having a customer-centric model. So any information that I provide her with, she takes that to other stakeholders on the academic side and then like works with them on, revising our programs or offerings to ensure that our current students thrive not only during the program that they're enrolled for the duration of, but also after. So while we do start with the whole consumer behavior and the consumer mindset piece, we try to ensure that everything we do with that is also going to impact their experience as a student with us and their life after. So it's the whole customer journey that we focus on. And when students are happy, leadership is happy, I'm happy.
That's great, Arti. You've mentioned a lot of gold in that response, and I want to dive a little deeper into that. So you talked about consumer journeys and how you are focused in helping your CMO, your leadership, better understand the customer. Um, can you talk a little bit more about when you are trying to improve internal understanding, when you are trying to improve customer experiences, what are some of the challenges that you typically face?
I would say when you're talking about the consumer journey, my approach to first like better understanding that would be to either conduct surveys or in-depth interviews, or we also try to map behavior on our website when someone's just visiting the website. So these are three different things that I would try to do firstly to better understand their experience. So the first challenge that comes to mind when doing any of these exercises is to get the stakeholder to agree upon the problem statement. Because sometimes I may have to do either a quant analysis in the form of a survey or a qualitative analysis in the form of an in-depth interview, or sometimes I may just need to understand website behavior to understand why our metrics look the way they do. But not every stakeholder realizes or understands that it is not one size fits all. We need to custom create the problem statement and then decide on what approach it is that we need to take. So I would say one of the initial challenges that I would face would be to have them agree upon our approach. It could be one, it could be perhaps a marriage of two. Now, once that is done, if we are going down the survey route or the interview route or both, the next challenge would be to get them to agree upon the instrument, the survey instrument or the interview instrument, because I work with multiple stakeholders and everyone's responsible for different KPIs. And so sometimes it becomes challenging for a group to come together and focus on what the main goal of a project is. So I would say that would be my second challenge. And honestly speaking, as a researcher, as an analyst, I would like to think of myself as an unbiased individual. So I'm always open to their input. It's just the way that I would have to remind them to wrangle everyone together and bring them back to what our aim is with the project would be a challenge for sure. But again, I accept that as part of the life of a researcher. And then another challenge that comes much later is when you have your results ready, you have done all the work, the analysis, and are ready to present. It's all about how these findings are presented to a vast group again, where everyone's responsible for different KPIs, because you do not want to point fingers at people. You want to do this in a non-accusatory manner, all the while having no biases in, presenting your insights and recommendations. So, while it is a challenge, I honestly quite enjoy, working on that. Um, Something that I've found really helpful for me is to always work with third-party vendors, because they have no stake in the game and they're not going to take sides. And I always find people are more receptive to the vendors when they're the ones presenting the work. So that is one of my solutions to that challenge for sure.
No, great experience shares, Arti, and thank you for doing that. You have, as usual, shared a lot of gold in your experiences, and I really appreciate you for doing so. I want to highlight on a couple of things that you said to make sure that our viewers don't drive by too quickly. So, the first thing that you talked about, getting stakeholders and leadership to agree on the problem statement. That is so critical, Arti, as you've pointed out. The reason why that's also critical is not only does it really drive the how we will solve the problem as researchers, but it also ensures that there is alignment from internal stakeholders and leadership on the research, on the results, on the planned deliverables, right? I don't know if it's ever happened with you, but so many of our clients come to us and tell us, hey, over the years, we've done so much research by ourselves, with other partners. And a common frustration sometimes is the organization makes an investment. We do spend a lot of our time, resources in doing this work, and then nobody acts on it. It just becomes another pretty deck that sits on someone's desk. So that's why I really like how you began with talking about getting leadership to agree on the problem statement. In our practice, Arti, we actually define it as impact. So, and we break impact of the problem statement down into two components that I want to share with you and our viewers. We define impact as business impact, and we define impact as personal impact. And these two need to be filled out on every problem statement, every project. Now, business impact really is, what is it that we're trying to do? Why are we trying to do it? And how is this going to move the needle for the organization, right? Just these three components. If we are clear on the what and the why, what we guide clients is, when you're thinking about how this moves the needle for the organization, drill it down to the aspect of, down to financial levels, if you can. So, for example, if a project is, hey, we need to improve our marketing, okay, well, what does that mean? By how much? And what is going to be the end goal of this? Well, the end goal is we need to improve this, so we need to have 10% more traffic to our site. We need to have 10%, more acceptance by our market. Maybe we need to have sales improve by 10%, whatever that metric is, right? The closer you can get to getting a financial number out of that, the better served you are, because at the end of the day, every research project is an investment, right? And if you can justify that, look, this work was done because the end goal was to increase revenue or decrease costs, or whatever that KPI was, if it can be translated into a financial metric, then it makes your job easier as a researcher to justify the investment in that project. So that's business impact. Where we really take it further in line with your guidance about really getting approvals and buy-ins from stakeholders and leadership is also talking about personal impact. For every project, what we guide our clients is ask your internal stakeholders, hey, if this achieves the deliverables that you think that you want to get, or if it achieves the goals that you want to get, does this have a personal impact on you? And Arti, every time I ask this question, I'm always surprised by the answers I get. I recently had a client tell me, A, no one has ever asked me that question. B, they said, this project is really important for me. We were doing some marketing testing for them, and they said, look, I got hired for this particular initiative that the company is taking. And so my job depends on it, right? And so what
Wow.
happens, and so Arti, what happens is when you make that connect personally with internal stakeholders, you not only are you showing empathy, but you're also showing a keen interest in what is really important for them. And then if the research is getting designed for what's important for the business, but also what's important for that individual, that stakeholder, well, guess what? When the results come out, they're going to be your loyalists. They're going to be your cheerleaders, and once you give them the research, and if they've been a part of that journey with you, then that is not a deck that is going to stay on their desk. That is a deck that they will act on.
I really like your point about, this whole conversation around impact, because we do internally use a document where, you're going through like this whole process on like, what's your aim, what's your goal, and what's the impact? And the impact's always business impact. It's never personal impact. And so for me, this is the first time I'm hearing about this, and it feels strong. And I think about like what you said about having these stakeholders then become your cheerleaders seems more likely, because now we've tried, like you said, you've tried to empathize with all of these different stakeholders, and you're not just thinking about this from a numbers perspective, like you're trying to humanize it. And that is so important when you're doing like consumer research as is. So we try to empathize with our survey respondents and our interviewees, but I would say I personally have never thought about, what it is like from my stakeholders' point of view, that does not take numbers into account. Like, how do they feel about this? And yes, there's something so very humanizing about that personal impact. So I'm going to keep that, in my pocket and try and work on it as well. So that's really great advice. Thank you, Nathan.
Absolutely, Arti, and you're very welcome. And this always surprises me whenever this question is asked. And the other flip side also is what we guide our clients is when this discussion on problem statements, project statements is going on, right? And if the business impact and the personal impact are not strong, then we as researchers have this responsibility of guiding our stakeholders to not do that project, right?
Right.
Because then the resources can be spent on something else that is more critical. So that's also another facet of this. But I'm really glad, that you liked it. This is something that is a pet peeve with a lot of researchers in the industry, as you know, on how do we get buy-in, how do we get more involvement from key stakeholders. And I have to share with you and our audience that whenever you are able to connect the dots between the personal and the business impact, magic does happen. So So that is something I've learned over the years. So happy to share that. Coming back to, your practice, Arti, and with the types of projects that you do, let's talk a little bit about, customer journeys in your world. Can you please share with our viewers on when you've done customer journey work, how have you gone about it? What drove you to do it? And finally, what was the impact or result for your organization?
Absolutely. So I'll start with what drove me towards doing that. And again, I would say that I'm lucky to work with a team where the senior most leadership truly believes in the power of data and wanting to build something that is customer centric. I've had the pleasure of working with Carrie Hildebrand both at Western Governors University and now again at National University. And she has always had a very customer centric approach ever since I've known her. So when she sees certain metrics look a certain way, her knee-jerk reaction is to try and understand what's happening in the consumer's mind. Whereas we've had people who first would ask, like, are you sure it's not a data issue? So while she also does that, she simultaneously wants to know what's happening, with our customers. So with that being said, I believe I always have that support to go ahead and implement, various types of customer journey analyses. So on the most recent one that I worked on, I I employed both a quantitative as well as a qualitative approach as I do with a lot of my research projects that are longitudinal in nature because what I believe is with the quant findings, I'm really able to identify correlations between the different variables, which help me construct further like hypotheses for further analyses. And the qualitative work that I do, it's exploratory, so it's almost like no man's land. Go do whatever you can, and that helps provide so much context to all the quantitative work that I've been doing at the same time. So for my most recent project, I did survey a lot of individuals who were both current students as well as individuals who expressed interest to become a student at the university. And my goal over here was to understand what is the difference between someone who chooses to apply or inquire about a program at our university versus someone who goes even further and enrolls and becomes a student and matriculates and graduates. So we really, what we wanted to do over here was, and when I say we, I'm speaking about the marketing team at large, our main goal over here was to understand what is it that we are doing in our outreach process that is resonating with these individuals, that's working well. And then we have them, submit an inquiry or an application form, but then there's a complete stop after it. So is there something that we're not communicating correctly? Or is there something that's happening after the submission of an application throughout that enrollment journey that's not working well with them? Is it something that is more organization driven, or is it something that is more intrinsic to the potential student that is leading them to not enroll in a program? And then again, at the same time, we wanted to take into account the experience of those individuals who do enroll, contrast it with these individuals who do not enroll, and then see what it is that we can do to make the experience of our active students better. Because like I said, we believe in not just enrolling students at our university. We want to ensure that they thrive while they're enrolled in the program and are ready for the job market once they graduate as well. So with that being said, it was really critical for us to sample the population correctly, because we wanted to speak with individuals for whom this experience was fresh in their mind. Because a lot of times what happens is that we rely on our memory to speak about a certain experience, and it's never accurate. And with that being said, even if I were to speak with someone who submitted an application like a month ago, 30 days is also a decent amount of time that has passed, versus someone who submitted an application 6 months ago and didn't enroll. And I have no idea like what has happened in these last 6 months, and how accurate or non-biased is their input at this time. So it was very crucial for me to sample the two populations in a way to get the least unbiased responses from these individuals. Um, and like I said, we definitely, the goal over here was to identify those pain points and then other opportunities that we could work on the student side as well. Is there any more detail you'd want me to get into regarding this project?
No, I think this is great, Arti. For our viewers who may be facing similar challenges, I think you've given them a great framework on how you went about it. One point that I wanted to clarify a little bit with you was, at the end of this, what was the result for your organization?
I would say, yes. So, of course, we went in with no hypotheses here, because because this was the first time we were doing this. And this was going to help us then construct further hypotheses, which is exactly what happened. Because we found nuggets of information that rose more questions for us. And that also helped us realize that, yes, there is a need to understand the customer journey through the enrollment funnel, as well as our student journey on a longitudinal basis, and see if, if it's changing based on things that the marketing department's implementing or the academic side of the university is implementing. So we definitely realized that there was a need to do this study longitudinally. And then, like I said, we found other nuggets of information which helped us construct hypotheses for further analysis. So that's definitely kept me busy since then. And I've been working very closely with our testing and optimization team as well, because they're constantly testing things on our website. And the findings from this study really helped them identify opportunities for and areas for further testing and optimization. It helps them prioritize their research needs as well. And that's just one team I'm speaking about. I would say one of the benefits that came out of this was it helped every stakeholder prioritize their research needs for the rest of the fiscal year.
That's wonderful, Arti. And that is, you've so eloquently put forth the advantages of doing customer journey work. And that's what I wanted to emphasize also for our viewers. I loved your use of qual and quant in this effort. I loved how you described really looking at the customer journey through the lens of different journey stages. Also, I loved your focus on really getting insights while they were fresh. That is so critical, especially when you're looking at journey aspects in trying to figure out moments that matter. And it's hard for people to tell you what really mattered to them, when the experience happened a month ago. So I think all of that was great. One final question, because I know we're at the end of our time. If you had the opportunity, Arti, to redo this study or another effort in the future, is there anything that you would improve or do different?
Yes, absolutely. So, one of the benefits, like I mentioned, that came out of the study was helping various stakeholders reprioritize their research needs. So I would say something that I would do as the researcher would be to become proactive and reach out to these stakeholders and get a better understanding and sense of what are their research needs and how do they tie in with the other stakeholders' needs, because we could really increase and improve our efficiency by bringing everyone together and just being more transparent about what it is that each of us is focused on. And I love what you spoke about, like the business and the personal impact. So like while speaking with you, I realized that that is definitely something that if we as researchers could employ in our day-to-day life, it would be really beneficial to avoid those last-minute requests and the rush requests. Something else that I would do differently would be to incentivize our respondents more cleverly, because I do think that was a challenge for us the last time. We did conduct the surveys and interviews again around the holiday season. And it was challenging to then, you know, go back to stakeholders and ask them if we could increase the incentive or change it to like a gift, instead of a gift card, like a larger gift amount, or like a raffle or something like that. And then as you would know from your experience, it's really hard to get stakeholders to respond around the holidays, let alone respondents. So I would definitely want to incentivize more cleverly if we do happen to work on a high impact project around the holiday season, because I believe research is ongoing. It is not seasonal. The questions can be seasonal, but not the research. So as researchers, we just have to be really smart about how we approach these questions around times that could prove to be challenging in terms of getting a response, right?
Wonderful, Arti. Wiser words have not been spoken before on this topic. So thank you so much. I think, the best part is talking to practitioners like you is I believe that our viewers get a lot of practical suggestions and practical experience shares. And this is not theoretical, because you and I are living and breathing in this research world. So thank you again for taking the time to come on our show. I think our viewers will walk away with a lot of gold from this episode. So thank you.
Thank you, Nathan, for having me on the show. And I do hope that other individuals and your viewers, benefit in some way from the conversation that you and I have had today. I know for certain that I've benefited from not just this conversation, but also listening to some of your previous podcast episodes. So I truly appreciate the work that you and your team are putting in. And again, thank you so much for just sharing your vast pool of knowledge with me as well.
Thank you, Arti. You're so kind.